Hello everyone, I am Chris Williams and I'm here with yet another review. This time we're going to be reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man issue 17. We'll go off right with the cover. The cover by Edgar Delgado and Humbert Romas is a good cover. It shows Kraven the Hunter sitting on a throne while all the other characters' heads are mounted on a wall. It is a good cover, and I'm really enjoying it. The art is really good, and it's a good Spider-Man cover, showing that Kraven is going to have one massive hunt. Whether or not any of these other secondary characters are going to die in this event is unknown. The event's name is The Hunted, Part 1. And it looks like it's going to shape up to be great. The first page is actually a full-page spread showing Kraven on all fours, acting like an animal, acting like the animal he is. He is getting ready, and this is basically a throwback to Kraven's Last Hunt that opened on a similar note. But this story, in some respects, is a pale imitation of that. You'll see in a few moments. But the artwork here by Humbert Ramos is very great. Well, good. I've heard others he doesn't do a good Spider-Man comic, but I'd say in this issue at least, this looks good. But yeah, I could have gone for a much better artist. But this is great artwork. While Kraven the Hunter walks through his menagerie of animals he's hunted and made into trophies, he goes to a little room, which, if you've read or seen parts of Kraven's Last Hunt, this is basically a throwback to it, where he's in front of a coffin, and he reminisces about how his last hunt that took place, well, his last great hunt that took place in Kraven's Last Hunt, how after he had done his life, he had ended his own life. And that the reason he did that was because the world had changed and he had felt like he was no longer needed in it. So he had ended his own life after completely defeating Spider-Man in all ways, first physically and then showing him that he was a much better Spider-Man than Spider-Man will ever be. And then he ended his life. And he thinks back on that, is that all his efforts to do that had been wasted since his resurrection. And you see a tear fall down his cheek, that his last greatest victory had become mute. Here, we switch over to Spider-Man. He's in pursuit of the Lizard's son who had run away from home. The Lizard's son has been kidnapped by Taskmaster and the Black Ant. Those two mercenaries had been on a hunt for metahumans lately. Metahumans like those who are themed on animals, like the scorpion and the rhino. And we see here flashbacks to where Spider-Man reminisces about the events over the last few weeks, how Taskmaster and the Black Ant have been hunting guys like the rabbit, or the white rabbit, and the owl. How he didn't really feel all that guilty about it, but now it's come back to bite him in the behind, because now they've gone after some of his friends, particularly his old girlfriend, the Black Cat. She had been kidnapped as well, and now he's sick with worry. Not only is John Connor's son, Jack Connors, those two mercenaries have even dared kidnap Black Cat now. And now Spider-Man's in pursuit of them, and he has a suspicion that Kraven is involved as well. So he swings off because he's discovered where Kraven is hiding out. He's hiding out at a ship. Well, Spider-Man swings off over there, and we switch over to Black Cat, and she reminisces how she got involved in this event. How she says to herself, or rather she thinks to herself, that she never wanted kids, but it seems, and it's strange to her when she found a kid in a cage, that she would lie down and try to help him. But nevertheless, she finds out, she reminisces that this was all a trap, because the ones who Black Ant and Taskmaster used the kid to lure her out to trap her, and they caught her, and now she's trapped with Jack Connor, and all she can do is wait in this hotel room with him until the big bad of this arc comes out to speak with them. And that doesn't take long, because as soon as she finishes that thought, Kraven himself comes out to welcome her. And she says, "Back off, you should leave the boy alone, because he has nothing to do with this." And he says, "No, it has nothing to do with it as well." Because Kraven explains to her that this has all been a ruse. He caught her so he could lure out Spider-Man. And he knows Spider-Man also cares about Jack Connors. And she's angry about this, and she screams at Kraven the Hunter that Spider-Man will beat him into the ground. Spider-Man has entered Kraven's base, and he thinks back to how he's lost both Ned Leeds and Flash Thompson. And he's worried that he'll lose more people before this is all over. But then suddenly a strange green gas is being pumped into the room, and then Kraven the Hunter appears. But this is strange. This Kraven is different. Maybe Spider-Man's hallucinating or not, because Kraven looks much younger, like a man in his 20s instead of a man near 50. And they begin to fight. But because the gas isn't affecting Kraven as much as it is Spider-Man, Spider-Man begins to hallucinate, and he sees a blur of Kraven as they begin to fight. We flash back to where Arcade is basically making fun of Man Bull, while Kraven the Hunter ends up coming up behind him and talking to him about current events and how this plan should be able to be accomplished. And you can see that Kraven the Hunter is visibly an older man, a few years older than even Arcade, at least in his mid to late 40s. Not as young as the Kraven we have just seen fighting Spider-Man. And here we are flashing over to where the rich people who've hired Kraven the Hunter, they hired Kraven so that they could partake in a hunt where they could hunt people like animals, particularly superhumans, with no danger to themselves but to kill them and take their, heads as trophies, apparently. A bunch of sick people. Here we flash over to the fight with Kraven versus Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's giving as good as Kraven is giving. And we see Spider-Man punch Kraven in the face. But then something happens. As he's beating down Kraven, he ends up hallucinating that he's actually beating on Mary Jane. And he doesn't know what's happening. He sees blood. Spider-Man hallucinates that he's in Mary Jane's home, and he finds her dead body. Kraven says, "You saw it, didn't you?" He says that this gas can cause you to see the future, or at least fragments of it. And so Spider-Man is beside himself, and Kraven uses Spider-Man's uncertainty as to what's happening to finally beat Spider-Man down and defeat him. With a massive crack, Kraven throws him down into the ground, breaking the ground beneath him, and Spider-Man is defeated. Later on, Spider-Man wakes up in his old black and white costume. He's in the middle of Central Park, and he wakes up saying MJ. The Scorpion comes in and asks him if this is all his fault. He was kidnapped by Taskmaster and the Black Ant, and he's asking Spider-Man if this is all his fault. Spider-Man looks around and he sees the other supervillains and superpowered beings who are themed on animals who've also been kidnapped over the last few weeks. All Spider-Man can do is look around in fear as he's outnumbered at least 50-1. But before the Scorpion can kill Spider-Man, there's suddenly a giant explosion, and the villains look around in confusion. They don't know what's going on. And what happens is they see a bunch of robots that are themed on Kraven the Hunter. The White Rabbit says, "Run!" as the robots begin to fire at Spider-Man and the supervillains. And the final panel is, you see a bunch of themed Kraven robots, Kraven the Hunter robots, with bows and arrows and guns, hunting rifles, and other hunting equipment as they begin to stalk Spider-Man and the supervillains. This issue by Nick Spencer, who's writing this issue, is good. I enjoyed it. And Humberto Ramos's art is good. He's iffy on Spider-Man, I'll admit that. But this comic was really good with some really good artwork. So I think he's shaping up to be a good Spider-Man artist. But maybe it's just my opinion on this issue because I did enjoy it. If you like this issue, buy it. Because you should check out this event, The Hunted. It is a really good event in my opinion. And a classic Spider-Man story. Now, if you like this review, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave a like and leave some comments down below. I'll be back with another video tomorrow. Keep watching my videos because you're supporting good independent content. See you all later.